Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. It's Thursday, the 3rd of December. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Rough, Tam McManus and Steven Naismith. Tam Cowan, I beg your pardon. Sorry, Tam, about that. I can't believe I called you Tam McManus. Tam Cowan with us on this Thursday. Look at him shaking his head. It's an absolute disgrace that I could forget my great pal from this area. But I know Tam well enough that 5 of his mates will come down and give me a right good leathering the next day. So with that in mind, he's here. I'm delighted he's here. We've got lots to talk about. Of course, the snow kicking in many areas in the Central Belt. Wouldn't it be great? Matches called off for COVID, then matches called off for the weather conditions as well. It's Europa League, Rangers and Celtic in action. We'll get your thoughts on that. You can like, share and follow us on Facebook, and you can subscribe on our YouTube channel and watch us on Twitter. Roughie, first things first, the SPFL have released a document basically outlining the consensus of the clubs to, I think, a number of issues that the SPFL board wanted a bit of power to be able to award 3-0 victories for clubs who can't field a full team because of COVID. There were other powers that they wanted to, if they needed to curtail the league and call it, they wanted to have that power. And in the end, the general consensus was that they were not going to get any of the changes that they were looking for.
No, I think they were disappointed when they sent out that questionnaire that the response that came back from the teams wasn't positive in any of the suggestions that they wanted. You know, obviously voiding the league came into that one as well. But no, the clubs never voted for anything. So maybe they're thinking that the clubs are maybe further down the line with some of the things that have been happening. Maybe they thought the clubs would change their mind and they'd be a wee bit more for some of these things that were on the questionnaire, but it didn't look as if that was the case.
Yeah, Tam, 20 clubs agreed to give the SPFL power to curtail the season, not enough. 17 clubs agreed they would give the SPFL the power to avoid the season, not enough, as Roughie mentioned there. 12 clubs in favour of the SPFL having power to manage COVID-related disruption. 4 clubs were in favour of the board imposing 3-0 defeats, and 19 clubs said it was too early to take decisions now and should be considered later in the season.
Yeah, well, thanks right away, Peter, for confusing me with Tam McManus. The minute those words left your lips, I just felt my 5 O grades and 7 hires disappearing in a flash. But I'm not really taking that to heart anyway, because I'm sitting here a wee bit half rubber, because I've been celebrating ever since those 2 3-0 wins for Motherwell were announced earlier today. This is a magnificent time of the season for Motherwell fans. I thought we were looking a wee bit ropey against St Johnstone when they put us out the Betfred Cup, but we bounced back with those 2 magnificent 3-0s against St Mirren and Kilmarnock, and so it's great. Watch out, Celtic and Rangers. We could just come up there, sneak beneath the radar, and who knows, put in a challenge for the league. But you know what, Peter? I'm taking all the COVID stuff. I'm leaving it to the Blazers, if you like, to the admin men. I'm leaving it to the clubs. That's what they all get paid for. That's what they are meant to sort for guys like me, the football fan in the street. So let them go on with it. The only thing I will say, as much as removing my tongue from my cheek a wee bit here, Peter, as much as I'll take a 3-0 against St Mirren and a 3-0 against Kilmarnock, I am actually delighted and a tad relieved that they suspended these £40,000 fines, because irrespective of what St Mirren and Kilmarnock did wrong, and I read plenty about them no socially distancing when they were going to games. Apparently the bus, if I take you back to wacky races, Peter, I think the St Mirren and Kilmarnock buses were a bit more like the car at the Ant Hill mob used to travel about, and you know, when they were all packed into that, that's the image you get. But I don't want to see any clubs fined, and I hope by them saying the £40,000 fine is suspended until June the 30th. If that's just to give them a bit of time to get some money in it, the club again, fair enough. But I would sooner they had another look at it in June and just let it go, unless there were any other offences.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. Fining people when they're deep in debt and struggling at the moment is just ridiculous. Here's the SPFL statement with regards to the response from the clubs to this situation. Alleged St Mirren breached COVID regulations during the lead up to their matches against Motherwell and Hamilton. Admitted failure to observe physical distancing for seating arrangements on the coach and the pre-match meal, admitted to failing to ensure physical distancing at training, and admitted players had been car sharing. St Mirren's league matches against Hamilton and Motherwell will be recorded as 3-0 victories, as Tam mentioned, and that fine of 40,000 until June 30th, 2021, pending any further misdemeanours. St Mirren have obviously replied to that, disappointed with the outcome of the disciplinary hearing into the circumstances surrounding our postponed fixtures against Motherwell and Hamilton. The hearing found St Mirren guilty of breaching the protocols, and subsequently those 3-0 wins to both Motherwell and Hamilton, and of course the £40,000 fine. The club operated honestly throughout the whole process and will review its position before issuing a further response. And off the back of that, Kilmarnock, Stevie, are possibly at this moment, when you look at what they're guilty of, alleged COVID regulations during the lead up to the match against Motherwell, admitted failure to observe physical distancing for seating arrangements on the coach and the pre-match meal. The points and the fine are there as well. I think they are contemplating at this moment legal action on this. So clearly, you can see how difficult it is for clubs to take the 3-0 defeat, Stephen.
Punishment, as much as, yes, they've broke the rules, a bigger question to me is, if both clubs have broke the rules in terms of meetings on the bus and that, surely that was crystal clear beforehand. So if I'm sitting here, I'm questioning whether it was as clear as what the protocols were. And also, especially the clubs involved, it'll have a massive impact on later on down the season, when these clubs are desperate for points, if you're struggling for a relegation battle, and on the flip side, if you're going for Europe. So it is a big punishment for the kind of failure to put in the protocols that are required.
Yeah, and here's the response from Kilmarnock on this one as well, off the back of St Mirren's. Bitterly disappointed with the outcome of the disciplinary hearing from the SPFL into the circumstances surrounding the postponement of our match with Motherwell. Following the hearing, Motherwell have been awarded a 3-0 victory, as we know. The club is currently discussing their position with our legal representatives and will make further comment in due course. I wonder, actually, who was it? Was it an SPFL delegate, Roughie, who spotted them all coming off the bus? Was it questions into who was driving somebody to a match? I mean, you wonder how actually they got to the point of nailing them for it.
There was rumours. There were rumours, Peters. There was rumours that the person that dobbed them in was a lassie that works in that chip shop in Auchterarder that the buses all stop at. She saw them all crusted in as they were driving by, and I was like, you know what chance? I need to ask Steven Naismith this. What chance have fans got of hoping that their players, their team, when they get into a game, are going to be able to take on board the tactics issued by their manager when they can't even get their position sitting on a bus correct? I mean, you know, they've got it's absolutely farcical.
I'm questioning if it was that crystal clear, because, like you've just said there, it is, if it's one a row or is it one every two. If it's that easy and crystal clear, then the bus doesn't move. When everybody's on the bus, somebody checks over, everybody's fine, and the bus doesn't move until it's sorted and everybody's in the correct place. So I think it's a bit vague in terms of what I think that's what it'll come down to, that the actual regulations were more vague than expected.
Yeah, and it never rains but it pours. Scottish football, I think, at times, you know, if you look back over this year, when we eventually do the look back of 2020, apart from it being such a horrible year, I think a number of issues that just keep coming up. Scottish football just keeps on giving. The next one is, of course, police looking into financial irregularities at St Mirren. The club discovered issues during their annual audit. Forensic accountants have appointed the police, and HMRC have been told. St Mirren, of course, against Aberdeen on Saturday. But Jim Goodwin undoubtedly is going to get asked about this, and he needs questions about financial irregularities at his club like a hole in the head.
That's out with our department. Obviously the club released a statement yesterday, and I don't know the ins and outs of what's going on, but it's certainly not something that I'm going to get too bogged down with. We've got a far too important a job to deal with ourselves in terms of getting things right on the weekend and the football park. So I'll leave that up to the other guys to sort out business off the park.
Yeah, as a manager, when you're getting docked 3 points and it's awarded to the team that you're unable to play, and then you've got this over your head, and then you're still trying to keep St Mirren in the league as well, Roughie. I don't envy them. It's such a backlog of games that they were hoping to play as well. Yeah,
and it looked as if when they've come back, they've got their act together, football and wise. I think some of the performances have been very, very good. But Jim's right. He doesn't want to deal with things that he shouldn't have to deal with. He's employed by the club to get the right team on the park and win games. So whatever's going on in the background should be sorted by the people who are in there. But the whole situation, I don't know the financial insides and out of it, but it seems really strange that. I don't know the ins and outs of their club at all, but it looks as if there's another 2 organisations that actually take part in putting the audit books in. So that seems to be where the problem is. But, only the people who are looking at it will know the answers to it.
Yeah, let's not try and
Peter, I wonder if it's all very innocent because they have had a decent wee bit of forum the last few weeks. I wonder if suddenly taking 2 lots of win bonuses out of the St Mirren bank account, maybe that's what caused all the drama. That set the alarm bells ringing. They were wondering, where did this money go? They've maybe not won 2 in the bounce for about 25 years. So that might be, it might actually be perfectly innocent.
Yeah. I'm so glad, Tam, that you were able to take that slant on it, because for one sorry moment there, Roughie dodged it the amount of times over the last 20 years when I've been hosting a show when a footballer tries to tell me about accounting and I just want to jump off the edge of a cliff, and Steven knows exactly what I'm talking about. The amount of times when I was in Radio Clyde and I wanted to punch my face.
Yeah, when I was at Thistle, and I went to my very, very, I don't mind admitting this, I went to my very, very first board meeting, and obviously the financial figures go out with the graph and the percentages and the ups and downs, and I was sitting around the table, and for the first 10 minutes I had the graph upside down. So that shows you how much I know about what's happening at the club.
I thought you, for a minute there, Roughie, I thought you were saying you're just going to colour it in as well. Anyway, apart from anything else, brilliant. Let's get back to the football. Tam, Neil Lennon's there. He's pushing ahead with what he's looking at. First of all, Milan, then it'll be St Johnstone, and he's talking about looking at potential signings for the January transfer window. So Dermot Desmond is sticking by him.
Yeah, Peter, you know what? I was dreading you asking me about this today, because I sometimes get accused in this programme of answering you at great length, and there's no short answer to this. I'm absolutely bemused. First up, to the Celtic fans who were protesting outside Celtic Park. I'd challenge them to come and support a team like Motherwell for a while, and then they'll realise how utterly spoiled they've been. They wouldn't last a minute at a club that's no winning trophy after trophy after trophy. And you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Peter, but I reckon this must be the first time that a club has been under siege by its own supporters 3 weeks before potentially securing a quadruple treble. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of world football before. But the reason I'm struggling with all this in my mind, that's one side of it. The flip side of that is actually that I've got a lot of sympathy for the Celtic fans, because who would have thought back in 2012 that we would have found ourselves where Celtic and Rangers are right now, just 8 years later? Every man in their dug when Rangers had their financial implosion 8 years ago assumed that Celtic would have disappeared over the horizon by now. But as things stand, Rangers are motoring in Europe and Celtic are out. And Rangers, we all know Celtic have got 2 games in hand, are 11 points clear in the top flight in the year that everything was all about the magical 10 for Celtic. So I do have some sympathy as well for the Celtic fans, but the whole thing is just pretty much bewildering. If I was Neil Lennon, I'd love to ask Steven Naismith this. With tonight's game against DC Milan being a dead rubber, I wouldn't put out my strongest team for love nor money, because if they take another doing with their strongest team, I think that is really going to put pressure on him. If he puts out the young boys, and a lot of managers get lauded for introducing some youngsters to big games like this and giving them European experience, blah, 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 then he's got a wee bit of a free hit. But it's going to be very interesting tonight. But I will still point out that Celtic, you can still get them 3-1 now. To win that title. They do have games in hand. They've got Rangers to play in January 2nd. A sporting bet and a wee insurance policy maybe even for the Rangers fans.
Yeah, quite a lot of people reacting, and of course quite a few people saying, Jim Main says, Tam, your hatred of Celtic is there for all to see. I think you're not being unkind, Jim, on this. He's just pointing out basically what everybody can see over the last week, which is basically, Stephen, Celtic and many other fans. Listen, if Brian Laudrup can come out and say Fiorentina lost a game and he had to go into the boot of a car to get out of the stadium before the fans were wanting to lynch the players. That's the nature of it for supporters. That erratic, irrational, sometimes the behaviour is called into question and goes beyond the legal limits. People break the law.
They do. And I think what Tam says there, I think what makes it much bigger and much more aggressive is the fact that it's 10. It's all boiling down to 10 in a row. It's never been done before. Celtic have cruised it for the last 8 years, 9 years. They've had it easy street. They've not actually had any real quality challenge. Every challenge has died away before they've actually had to have a lot of pressure on themselves. This season's been totally different. Rangers have, over the last 18 months, pushed right on, and it is a serious title challenge. So that emphasises the anger, the frustration, because a lot of Celtic fans would have, at the start of this season, been so confident that 10 in a row's in the bag, and it has month after month fallen to pieces. So that's where I think the anger comes from. In terms of the manager, I still think he won't last the season. I think he says the right things in terms of looking for players in January because that's his job and that's what he to do. But I think it's gone too far for him personally. I don't think I wouldn't say anything about like players have turned or anything like that, but subconsciously when it's in such bad form, it is so hard to turn around.
Yeah, for me, and some people have accused us on the programme, Roughie, of this feeling of trying to get rid of the manager. Well, I don't think anybody in the programme has suggested for a minute, just sack Neil Lennon because you want rid of him. I think our job is to look at the evidence in front of us. You've been, quite vociferous in your defence of Neil Lennon, saying he should be given time, he should be given to the cup final at least. I, on the other hand, have merely looked at it and said they're not playing well. There's a number of players in my mind that have thrown the manager under the bus. And as an overview, I think, the Ross County defeat was, for me, the point where I thought they would sack him. But they haven't. So they're sticking by him, Roughie. And with that comes the real pressure now, which is not on Neil Lennon. It's on the board now. It's got nothing to do with Neil Lennon. He's just got to keep trying to do his job, Roughie, because the board have made the call and they will suffer the anger of the fans because they'll either determine whether it was a good decision or a bad decision. And as Stephen mentioned, 10 in a row could slip away within the next 2 or 3 matches.
Yeah, and I've said all along down the line, Neil Lennon isn't a fool. He knows that. He's already said at his last press conference, I thought I was going to get sacked after the Ross County game. So he knows what's on the line. He knows its results is the only ones that can save him. And if you go the negative way or losing to St Johnstone in the league and losing the next one, he will get sacked. And he'll expect to get sacked. I'm just saying that the only thing I said from the beginning was the service that he'd done to the club, as a player and as a manager, and the cups he's won at the club. Nobody's defending the last month and the results that have went there. I just think...
Yeah, we could hear you, Roughie. I don't know why you decided just to I don't know why he just decided to emotionally cut us off there. That wasn't Roughie.
He just
about to burst into tears.
Seeing if his latest video's downloaded, I think.
It was actually just changing channels, Peter. There's a pub with massive knockers on tipping point.
Absolutely. Tam, to be perfectly honest with you, I'd be happy if he ditched us if that were the case. Just on the point though, Stephen, and this is where I see great parallels with you and where you were at Hearts, because I feel as if Hearts, similarly, and Budge at the time, was loyal to Craig Levein. She may well have been clouded in her judgment by the fact that she felt, a good, strong personal bond with Craig Levein. But over and above that, she may well have been, as a fan, taking into consideration everything that is associated with Craig Levein and Hearts as well. So I see great similarities. Do you?
There is, to some extent. I think that it's that fine balance of not being trigger happy and dismissing the manager, but there becomes, again, with the season being 10 in a row and everything riding on it, there becomes a point that you're either all in with the manager, or if you're going to make change, you need to make change quick enough that somebody can come in and effectively get you to the point where you win the league. So it's a very fine balance. Like you said, the board seem to have backed the manager at the moment. But again, as well, I think the manager spoke very well in terms of understanding the situation. He's not... any time I've ever spoke to anyone, I've always found him that a realist. He understands. He's been in the game long enough, so it's not about what he needs to do. It's just about how he gets to that point of winning games again. Yeah,
of course. And he's in action, as Tam says. Will he play a full-strength side? I reckon he will. They're taking on AC Milan in the San Siro. Of course, it's Rangers against Standard Liège. And a win tonight for Steven Gerrard's side will take them into the last 32 of the competition with a game to spare. Here's a quick look at what's on offer tonight.
Many Celtic fans may be surprised that their team head to AC Milan in the Europa League tonight with Neil Lennon still as manager, but he has received the backing of his board once again, so is still firmly in charge. The Hoops campaign is over on the continent as a run of just 2 wins in 10 games included 2 embarrassing 4-1 losses to Sparta Prague. Lennon's team are not only playing for pride, but they're also looking to spark their season back into life to help them domestically, so don't expect them to lie down.
Trying to find the balance really. Elliot Nisi won't travel, he's unavailable. Julien's, come back in. He's played 2 games, so he's a doubt. Duffy's having a knee assessed that he picked up a knock in training today. We'll see how he is. But I'll still try and, put a strong team out and see how the game goes and maybe gives the squad some much-needed game time as well.
They face one of Europe's most informed teams, with the Italians top of Serie A and unbeaten domestically, although they did take just 1 point from the double-header with Lille, putting them second place in the group. There will be no Zlatan Ibrahimovic tonight, but there's plenty of talent out there in the shape of Hakan Çalhanoğlu and Ante Rebic, amongst others. A strong and united performance is what Lennon is looking for here, but anything other than a heavy defeat could be seen as a positive for the Hoops at the moment. The same cannot be said for Rangers, however. They're unbeaten in all competitions in December and top of both their domestic and European leagues. A win tonight against Standard Liège guarantees a place in the last 32 for the second year running, which would be a huge achievement. The Gers ran out 2-0 winners in Belgium, so are favourites, but Standard are desperate for a victory, which would see them back in with a chance of qualification.
It'll be a difficult game tomorrow, but we're at home. We're in a good place. Confidence and belief is really high at the moment. We're on an unbeaten run that we want to try and protect and continue. And we know that Standard have got to come here and try and win the game. So we have to be aware of that, and that'll certainly try and play some part in our game plan, knowing that they're in a more desperate situation than us.
Ryan Jack is unavailable, but Joe Rebo is in contention to play after an illness at the weekend. Rangers have progressed so much in the last 12 months that going through is not enough as they aim to win the group, and a victory tonight would put them just one game away from doing so.
Well, there you have it. And I'm not quite sure what Tam has on his head at the moment, but you can you can explain it to me in just a minute. Roughie, I look at the contrast in the fortunes of the two of them in the Europa League. Listening to the injury problems that Neil Lennon may well have, I'm standing by my prediction of AC Milan to win by 3-0.
3-0. I think at this moment in time, after seeing them at Parkhead, it wouldn't be a major disaster. It'd be a disappointing to get that, but I think Neil's looking for some kind of performance tonight, and they'll just have to go out and see what they can get out of the game. Because as we know, as Stevie had said there, it seems to be that the whole club is now focused on 10 in a row. That's what the be-all and end-all is. It's league results that are going to be very, very crucial. But you don't want to go to Milan tonight and get an absolutely embarrassing performance, because you don't want to take that into the game at the weekend. Yeah. So he'll be looking for some kind of performance for some people that he maybe wouldn't expect. But it's another blow if the two centre halves are struggling when that's when they're struggling the most.
Yeah, and you've just mentioned there that it wouldn't be too bad. 3-0 then. Is 3-0 not bad?
Well, if you get beat 3-1 at home, you're expected to lose another 3 away from home. So anything less than that would be a bonus.
Yeah, so less than 3-0. Is 3-0 bad? I just need to clarify.
Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's bad. It's obviously bad, but bad. You've already seen the quality that they've got. But he needs a performance. If you think 3-0 is bad, I'd say 5-0 is horrendous. Put it that way.
The reason why I'm saying that is because now I'm just giving Steven Naismith and Tam Cowan a little insight into something that they are not aware of in your DNA, because obviously 3-0 is not bad, 5-0 is really bad, but just over maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Stephen, Roughie was on the show and basically said, Gordon Strachan, if he loses 3-0 for Scotland as the manager, he's got to go. 3-0 is a terrible result. He's got to go. And that's it. And I said, what, 3-0, you call for the manager's head? Yep, absolutely. So I'm not sure if you were playing, Stephen, but Scotland get cuffed 3-0. And Roughie suddenly bottled it. For use of a better phrase than I was thinking of, Stephen, he suddenly started backtracking and saying, no, he's my mate, let me keep him in a job. So, Stephen, Roughie thinks Celtic will lose 2-1. I think 3-0 to Milan. What do you think?
I actually think it'll be tight. I think Celtic will be very defensive. I think they could sneak a draw or a 1-0 defeat. That's where I see the game being.
Yeah, Tam?
I would need to see the Celtic team, as I said, in the back of what I said earlier, Peter. But as far as it goes with Rangers, I can explain the headband here. I was actually doing a Zumba class during that report into the Rangers game tonight, because I don't think we had to tune into that. I don't think it matters. I think Rangers are through. I think they're only kicking themselves that they didn't do the Bizzo last week, and they could have given the players a wee bit of a breather, which might have again helped them looking at the league campaign. So they'll absolutely be kicking themselves for throwing away that 2-0 lead last week. But I think they're in easy street, and there might be some quite exciting times ahead for the Rangers fans. It all seems to be cooking with gas with them just now, and talking to the Club 1872 guys, eventually being a major shareholder in the club, blah, blah, blah. They seem to be ticking all the right boxes now. And that only for a Celtic perspective, it highlights all the negative stuff that's happening across the other side of the city. It's intriguing times, absolutely. Yeah. As much as fans can't get into the games this season, as well we know, it is utterly, utterly fascinating just now. It really is.
Yeah, Matthew McEwen says 4-0 to Rangers, Buffalo with a hat-trick, and Stephen McVeigh says 6-0 AC Milan easy. So some people have their opinion on this one. As far as Rangers against Standard Liège, a player you know well, Stephen, is going to break Barry Ferguson's record with, of course, an appearance tonight. I'm talking, of course, about Alan McGregor. The stats, as you can see, are impressive. The record is 82. He'll make it to 83. Made his European debut in a 2-0 win over Malta in 2006, all that time ago. Played a key role in Rangers' run to the FA Cup final. Of course, missed the semi-final and the final due to injury. Would it have made a difference? Returned to the club in 2018, started every group and knockout stage clash in the Europa League. 37 clean sheets in 82 European games. What's your impression of Alan McGregor, Stephen?
He's up there with the best I've played with. As a goalie, as a character, he's great around the place, as over the years everybody's seen. And he's daft, he makes wrong judgments at times, but overall, everybody uses the word, but he's a winner. Whether it's him playing cards on the bus or whether he's playing in a cup final, his attitude to it is always the same. Fantastic. Some of the best save I've ever seen from any goalie that I've played with was him away to Bremen in our run to the Europa League final. Unbelievable reaction save. And then, like you said there, in the VT, it was so disappointing for him not to play in the final, semi-final and the final, because he played such a big part in getting us there. And another thing that probably isn't highlighted that much is, as he's got older, his attitude towards his body and preparation has got better and better and better, and that's why he's still at the levels he still is at his age. Which is a credit to him. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, I was lucky enough to commentate on every Rangers game all the way to the final in 2008, and I'm going to give you 2 drinks at our first staff party when we eventually get it, Stephen. I'm going to buy you 2 drinks if you can name the player who thought he'd scored when Alan McGregor produced what I can only describe as a similar save to Gordon Banks against Pelé in 1970. It was that good, that save you're talking about. Do you remember the guy who had the shot?
Was it Ozil, no?
Nope.
Is it
Played
Ozil?
for Werder Bremen. No. His name was Boubacar Sanogo.
I remember the name, I think.
There's a name for you. I'll never.
How did you remember that? How did you remember that, Peter?
It was incredible, but I was commentating on it, and I could not believe the save. It was absolutely world class, Tam. I mean, by the way, as Stephen will tell you, Rangers against Werder Bremen got battered, as they did in most of those games all the way to it. But they were so resilient that they were so well organised under Walter Smith that they managed to just somehow hold on, because another goal, Stephen, and you were out.
And like you said there, it was backs to the wall nearly every round, but within that you relied on Greedy. It wasn't as if you had the goalie in and your defence made loads of blocks. You relied on him. Nearly every game he would at least make one very good save that would be crucial in the game.
Yeah, you're right. He was absolutely top drawer on it. Although I have to say, goal of the whole tournament was Stephen Whittaker's against Sporting Lisbon. The move. It was just absolutely fantastic. It was a great goal. Tam, I'm going for Rangers to win this one comfortably 2-0. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'll maybe go 1-0. There you go. I'm not even going for my 0-0 tonight. I think Rangers have looked pretty decent. They'll just want to get through. Well, you're on fire with the football trivia, Peter, and I've got my headband on. Could you tell me which Brighton and Hove Albion legend you'd associate with wearing one of these in the 80s?
Yes, his first name was Steve Foster. Yeah, there you go.
Roughie's got it. Roughie's got it. There we go. And can you tell me which singer, now in his 80s, who had a hit with "You Were Always on My Mind," would wear one of these?
Yeah,
you were always on my mind. There we go.
Yeah. And you know the funny thing is, I'm glad you did that, Tam, because I was looking back on the your Instagram, and I have to say, I know you love singing a song, but as I was looking back in your Instagram, I can actually chart Roughie on his Instagram post when I thought he was losing it completely as an individual, because he would sit on his own in the room and start making up new lyrics for songs. And I thought, wow, he is going utterly insane in that house. But still, that was
it was lockdown. It was lockdown,
yes,
Peter.
lockdown.
It was you knew you'd really hit rock bottom when you started opening the gin bottle at 11:18 a.m. That's when you thought, we've got the vaccine. It saved us all.
Absolutely. Unless you believe in flat Earth. Anyway, apart from anything else, here's the Celtic team: Barkas, Elhamed, Beaton, Ayer, Frimpong, McGregor, Brown, Rogic, Laxalt, Christie and Edouard. So it's a strong team. And the subs: Bain, Hazard, Julian, Taylor, Ayeti, Klamala, Soro, Ncham, Henderson and Welsh. So it is a strong team, Tam.
Yeah, you'll be able to tell me, Peter, my gut reaction to hearing that. Is it the same team that they put out against Ross County? Is this a kind of a way out and show what you can do for that jersey kind of motive for Neil Lennon?
No,
is it the same team? No.
Frimpong never played.
And McGregor was a sub there, so there's a few changes there, but it's as good a strong team as you could ever wish for Celtic fans to see taking on AC Milan. I still think even with that team, it's going to be a torrid time. Hey Tam, you've now heard the team. Give us your prediction then.
Well, again, Celtic have got absolutely nothing to play for. Remind me, Peter, what do AC Milan need to do, or not, as the case may be?
Well, they need the win. As simple as that. They want to top the group. So they're going to be all out. Right. They're not going to be hanging back for a draw.
Okay, it'll be 2-0 AC Milan, then they'll put the tools away and the game will just peter out.
Okay, Hugh Scott says, Peter, I'm still sticking with a draw for Celtic tonight. So lots of people offering their opinion on it. And on the players and on the team as well. But nevertheless, good luck to both of them because every win brings extra points for the coefficient as well. Here's how the British teams fare in tonight's action if you're going to watch it. AC Milan Celtic's a 5-6 kickoff. Then it's Zora Luhansk against Leicester City, Lask against Tottenham, Rangers Standard Liège, Molde against Dundalk, and Arsenal against Rapid Vienna. So there you have it with the Europa League tonight. Which one will you be able to see both games, Roughie? Will you get a chance to watch both of them?
I'll be able to watch the early one. The early one at 6 o'clock. Once it gets to 8 o'clock, my hands are tied. With terrestrial TV, with all the cooking programmes. So I'll definitely get the Celtic game in, and I don't know about anything else after that.
Yeah, listen, the one thing I don't know if you've suffered from this, Stephen, but Dundee United, obviously, with Mickey Mellon and his first team coaches, are in a situation where they have to self-isolate. So suddenly you get some of the other coaches that have to take the training. Will it have any great effect, the manager being a distant voice?
I think it will. As much as he'll say this is a game plan and this is what I want to do, if you're not there, and it's going to be for a prolonged period of time now, so it makes just the finer details. It's okay him saying, right, I want to play 4-4-2 and get the ball down the wings type area, that's where they're weak or whatever, but the day-to-day detail, and even on match days, the responsibility does come on the coach that's actually there on the day. So I think it will have quite a big effect on them.
Yeah, well, suddenly, Thomas Coates, who's the under-18 boss, never in his wildest dreams would have been thinking, I'm going to be taking this press conference. Here's what he has to say about being in charge at the moment.
Players' teams are actually usually very simple. They just want to perform on a Saturday. They want information, they want detail, they want a little bit of empowerment and accountability, and I think we've tried to deliver that through the sessions. So I think as long as the players are happy, they're content, we're not trying to, steer the ship too far away from, how it's currently being steered, and the gaffer's making sure that we know how to land his message.
So it won't make a blind bit of difference in my mind, Tam. You?
Well, I just think they missed a trick there at Dundee United. Peter, our dear friend, and we've not seen him for a while with all the events being cancelled, Paul Reid, the wonderful impressionist, who of course works as the commercial manager at Dundee United and is able to mimic the voices of everyone in Scottish football. I don't see why, for a wee bit of fun there, Mickey Mellon wrote the words down that he wanted to say, handed them to Paul, and Paul had his first ever go in front of camera of doing his Mickey Mellon impersonation. That would have been terrific. That was an opportunity missed there. Nobody was even listening to what that boy was saying.
apart from his mum and dad, who are so proud of him. Nevertheless, I mean, can you imagine being? This is the difficulty, Steve. Can you imagine being thrust into the press conference to take the press conference where you have to answer questions from, all and sundry in the media?
He'll be thinking of every word he's saying. He doesn't want to offend the manager, the club. He definitely will be watching what he says.
Yeah. Roughie, who's going to get the Livingston job? Suddenly, it looks as if David Martindale is going to get. Is that any great surprise, Roughie? I always thought suddenly they would thrust him into the main spot.
Yeah, well, I think he's had a taste of it. I think he's done a lot behind the scenes, and obviously he's always been in the dressing room whenever Gary was there. So the players will know where he's coming from. I saw a few of them remarking that he's very good in the dressing room. He's very positive. So, it's not a new face. So it's something you would want to start with and see how he goes. But it just depends on which way they want to go down. But sometimes it's better having somebody in-house.
Yeah, strangely enough, though, some people would suggest, in the flip side of that, Stephen, well, he's just as culpable as Gary Holt on this one, the way they're playing. It's time for a fresh start with a new voice.
Yeah, but I think over the last weeks and months, the club have emphasised every opportunity to say that the structure of the club is this, and it's not going to deviate from that, which would suggest that no matter who comes in, there is a specific role there for them, and they've got to fit into it. So, again, I think that is the most likely outcome. And I've seen kind of a couple of more coaches been linked to going in, so I'd imagine that will become apparent for everybody.
Yeah, well, we wait to see exactly what's going to happen there, Tam. But I don't know about you, assistants getting promoted. There's been a few over the years that you think, it's a strange one. They've managed to get the job when they've been part of the poor form of late.
Yeah, it's no surprise to me. I mean, he came in there, he took over for a 4-0 win against Ayr United. You could argue, that Ayr United are lower league and it was the top flight clubs at Livingston were struggling in. I'd still love to know what Gary Holt made, though, sitting at home and hearing that his team had suddenly scored 4 times. But Livingston, of course, are no position to go out and, make Pep Guardiola an offer he can't refuse. So it doesn't surprise me that they've gone with the assistant. But what I would ask you to do, Peter, if the production wizards behind the scenes at PLZ, if they could put up that picture of David Martindale again, it would strikes me that he has also seen the young lady that was in Tipping Point earlier.
It's a strange photograph. I was wondering what the hell he was doing there, but he's clearly saying it's time you played for the jersey, and he got the response he was looking for. Listen, talking of clubs desperately needing money, hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel now with a vaccine, and then there's been some fans, Roughie, over the last 24 hours have been allowed in to watch lower league English football, certainly in areas which are Tier 1, I think maybe Tier 2 as well, Roughie, which is a good sign. And the English Premier League has basically acted as guarantor for the English Football League to get a huge loan of £200 million to be distributed across clubs who desperately need finances.
Yeah, it was interesting the way that was worded. You could probably tell me more on it. The big divisions, it's a loan, and the lower divisions, it's a grant.
Yes.
So that seems to be a scale that we should be working on as well when it eventually happens to us. That there are a lot of clubs in our league who don't possibly need as much money as some of the teams lower down. So it'll be interesting to see how it's staggered and how it is, if we ever get it, that is. I'm sure we will. But no, that seems a very sensible way to do it, because you see the English Premier League clubs spending 80, 70, 90 million. So I think it's right that there should be a loan rather than a grant.
Yeah, I quite like the idea, though, Stephen, of the grant. It means you don't have to pay it back.
Yeah, it is. But I think seeing the whole bigger picture with this, I think different clubs in England seeing easy opportunities to try and force something through at the start. I think credit needs to be given to them taking the time, making sure that it suits whoever they need, and like we see, part of it is grant and part of it's a loan. But the big thing is that it's happened now. Clubs can kind of breathe easy to an extent to know that they've got that funding there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think we've covered all bases with all the stories that were breaking. Last night, I watched Manchester United against Paris Saint-Germain. Football right across the globe. I don't know about you guys, but just watching it, I'd love to see the fans in the ground. But Manchester United against Paris Saint-Germain, I cannot believe for a minute, and I'll ask Stephen first, I'll get Tam and Roughie's thoughts on this. I can't believe a manager, when he sees a player who's basically fouling everybody all across the park, I can't believe for a minute he doesn't substitute him in case there's a threat that he's going to get sent off. And right on cue, Fred got the old red cards.
It must, and for a good tackle, but I think it must have been mentioned about 5 times. The headbutt alone, he's got to go. How he doesn't go for that is incredible. But then he's that type of player. I understand a manager saying maybe a number 10 or a wide player, I'm going to leave him on, even if he's a couple of 50-50 tackles, because he might win you the game and he's less likely to get involved in that. But that is Fred's game. It's in about breaking things up and then distributing the ball from there. So it was the easiest thing. Tam might have knew what the in-bet odds were of him getting sent off, but they would have been very short, I'd imagine. So
crazy.
Bad decision.
It was actually. And amazingly, Tam, before I get your thoughts on it, the manager was still saying he was unlucky.
I thought Fred kept his head and cool exceptionally well second half, and he was unlucky with that decision by the referee. So you can say in hindsight, to have 11 men, of course, that would have been better. But who's to say?
I love managers, Tam, when they talk a lot of guff. It's magnificent. They paint pictures. They paint pictures that are just not there. I mean, what a ridiculous backing of his player.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you can see it coming with some players. I remember years ago, I've had a laugh about it with him since, but Andy McLaren, when he was at Kilmarnock at the time, he'd clearly, as Andy will tell anybody that listens, he had a lot of issues at the time. He'd come to Kilmarnock, he came up to Fir Park, and he was getting wound up by the Motherwell fans. He was getting wound up perhaps by Motherwell players, and you could just see increasingly that he was losing the rag. He get booked at one point, and then you could see he was still simmering, and I think it might have been, trying to think who was the manager at the time, might have been Bobby Williamson, and he eventually just pulled them off, because he knew the red card was going to follow, And I don't know how he wasn't hooked off last night, But the scariest thing for me, Peter, and you know that I don't watch a lot of those games, but I tapped into wee bits of that last night, and see when you think, I mean, it's terrifying for Scottish football, but see when you look at an empty Old Trafford with a capacity of, what is it now, 72,000 or something ridiculous like that. The bottom line is that at 3 o'clock on a normal Saturday, if you looked at all their stores throughout the UK, Debenhams, traditionally at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, would attract more punters than a club like Man United. And there's Debenhams gone. This is where I find it really, really terrifying for all our clubs. And you can only wish our Scottish teams all the very, very best. When I heard the news about Debenhams, I thought, oof. I mean, they're attracting people day after day after day. The stores that were in Glasgow, Edinburgh, wherever, they're getting bigger crowds, if you can call it that, than a lot of our Scottish teams. Certainly get a much, much, much bigger turnover. And there you go. They're gone because of COVID. So we just need to keep, hoping and praying that all our clubs are going to be okay.
Yeah, and Roughie, I hate to say this at times, but there are certain players that I can't tolerate. I can't stomach them. Every time I see them, I never get tired of. I'll try and keep it as.
I know who you're going to say.
I'll try.
I know
I'll try
you're
and keep
going
it.
to say.
I'll try and keep it as nice as possible because he's obviously a pundit on the show. No, I'm only kidding. Only kidding. I'm talking about. I'm talking about Neymar. He just does my head in. I mean, if I was on the park, I'd never get tired of kicking him.
Yeah, I mean that's who he should be kicking before he gets sent off. But you're right. I can see where you're coming from. He's most annoying. I think if you ask any players who come up against him, it's just not the diving. It's all the other stuff that goes on. He really thinks he is somebody, and it's unfortunate, that that's the way he carries on because he's got some wonderful ability.
Yeah, Stephen, I don't know if you feel the same.
Another
way
good woman on countdown.
Yeah, he's away. There's somebody else there. Neymar is regarded as one of the great players at the moment in Europe and world football, but he does.
I think
he doesn't do it for me.
He's started to get an arrogance about him. See, I loved watching him when he was at Barcelona. I think he understood where he was in the pecking order, playing with great players, playing good football. He's then made the move to PSG to kind of match these guys in terms of finances and deals he's getting. But I agree that I think watching him against Celtic, I came up against the young right back and he showed a lot of arrogance towards him. Even last night with Scotty, he was kind of having a wee bit of needle with him as well. So I would just like him to get back to doing his football stuff because it is incredible. There's not many players like him.
Yeah, I don't mind a bit of arrogance as long as you can back it up, and there's arrogance in a positive way. And the reason I mentioned that, Tam, is because Juventus win the game last night by 3-0 against Dynamo Kiev. Ronaldo scores again. It's his 750th goal for club and country, and for me, he's one of the all-time greats. He's easily in my top 5 greatest players of all time.
Yeah, he's an absolute joy to watch, and that is an amazing start with those goals. But even the late great Maradona, as you'll have read last week, though, even he was having a wee bit of a dig still at Cristiano Ronaldo back in the day. He said it when Messi scores, he just kind of scores a goal and gets on with it. When Ronaldo scores, he thinks he's taking part in a shampoo commercial. He was accusing him. He did a wee bit too much of the preening and posing and all the rest of it. But I think, see, when you've got the skill that somebody like Ronaldo has got, I think quietly any fans of any club can kind of enjoy that because they know the guy can do it. He's not just showing off after one wee bit of magic or one wee special goal. He's able to do it week after week, game after game, and he's entitled to be a wee bit cocky.
Yeah, absolutely. And Roughie, when you look back at his career, this is a man who's won titles with Man United, with Real Madrid, and with Juventus. 3 tough leagues.
Yeah, that's why Juventus took him, because they know what he brings to the club. He knows the supporters at Juve would buy into it, and it wasn't a silly buy at all, because they know that the quality he's got. But he's another one who's done it. Dragged his country to World Cups, as well, and won them single-handedly. I don't mind the posing bit that he does because it reminds me a wee bit of that guy that you like, Michael Johnson, who you may like him or loathe him, he brings all the other players into line, and if you've got somebody like that in your team, you have to raise your game. You have to be better, and I think that's what he does.
Michael Johnson?
The basketball boy.
Michael Jordan.
Jordan.
Right.
See, actually, just on Ronaldo there, has there ever been a footballer that, again, social media helps with it, but through his career, you have seen the transition from one wiry winger that's feet are incredible to possibly the ultimate footballer? I don't think there's any other footballer in the history of the game that's managed to transform himself like he has.
Well, Tam's just about to tell us.
Davy Cooper. Seen as an out-and-out winger throughout his Rangers career, came to Motherwell, more often than not, wandered in field a wee bit and just ran the show majestically. Thank you.
Yes. David Cooper can't argue with his qualities. The only thing I would reply to Stephen on his point is the reason why I think there is greatness. That when eventually he hangs up his boots, Stephen, I think people will elevate him. I've got it as Pele, Maradona, Messi, Ronaldo, and Cruyff in my top 5. And the reason I think he's elevated is because, as you said, he started as a gangly winger. He played number 7 for Man United, which is out wide right, still scored phenomenal goals, then played 7 for Real Madrid, then got older and decided to move to a number 9. I mean, that's some going, Stephen, as you know.
Brilliant. Yeah, another great player that done it is Giggs. In the latter years of his career, moved into the centre of the pitch and transformed his game. But you can't underestimate how tough that is. Yes, he's great. He's turned, as he's got older and he's maybe not got the pace for long distances, he knows it's all about the sharpness, and that's all he does. Now you see him in the final third in the prime positions, one short move, bang, goal. It's incredible. And he's only 17 goals behind Pele.
It's amazing.
And
Peter,
amazing. let's be brutally honest. If a few years down the line, I know how much you love Ronaldo. If a few years down the line they suddenly decided, you know what, he's losing a bit of his pace now, but he can still read a game brilliantly. When the ball's at his feet, he's never going to lose it. Would you actually be utterly surprised if he ended up playing sweeper for the last, say, 12, 18 months of his career? I wouldn't. I don't think any manager would have hesitation at putting him back there, because it's a lot of it's up there.
Yeah. Listen, there are some players that could play anywhere. And listen, we talk about, I could give you a couple of players who played in Scottish football. Roughie, you played with one of them. But first of all, Chris Sutton played centre forward, played centre midfield, and played centre half. So he was that good. And I'm going to give you another name, Roughie, that you played with that I equally thought was a great player, which was Derek Johnson. Derek Johnson could play centre half, won the Cup Winners' Cup playing centre half, played centre midfield for a period of time for Rangers, and played up front. For me, he was always in what I would consider the 11 greatest ever Rangers players. He was that good.
Yeah, I would agree with you on both accounts. But I think going back to Ronaldo playing back there, I think the physicality of it and the thought of catching an elbow in his nose or catching some disfigurement down there might just go against him playing in there, So I can't see that. I think he'd have the ability to do it. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I think the chances of getting a wee bit of scar tissue somewhere might go against that one.
Yeah, well, I'm going to finish by mentioning, Roughie, are you aware of Stephanie Frappa? Have you heard that name before? She created a little bit of history last night. She's the first female referee to referee a men's European Champions League game. So, again, breaking down barriers, and of course we've had female assistants in the men's game, but I think it was just one of those things that caught my eye yesterday, that eventually will become the norm and people won't suddenly start to jar and have a second look at these things. So well done to Stephanie Frappa for refereeing that match. And a great match. Who cares whether it's male or female in these things? That's the way our minds should be working. So she's breaking down a lot of barriers and opening doors for a lot of females to look and say, I want to be the next referee in whatever game it is, men and women's game. Anyway, apart from that, lots of people putting up what they think is their top 5 players across the board as well. You always get people jumping in as soon as we talk about who are the greatest players in the world. We'll need to get Steven Naismith sitting down one day and give us his top 5 and explain his reasoning behind it all. All I would say to you guys is we're getting ever closer to Christmas. If you fancy it, don't forget, you can visit our shop, get in there and see some of the fantastic legends we have in there. And I think we've got possibly all 5 of the players that I've mentioned in our legends T-shirts, canvas and posters as well. Don't forget, good luck to Celtic and Rangers. It's only about an hour away from when our transmission goes out live for Celtic in Italy against AC Milan, and good luck to Rangers against Standard Liège. All that remains for me to say is like, share and follow us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you can. Thanks to Tam Cowan. and also to Steven Naismith and Alan Ruff, and to you for watching us.
It's the perfect Christmas gift for your dad, mum, your brother, your sister, your best friend. The Legends limited edition series by sports artist Jim Scullion is available to order now. From t-shirt to canvas to prints, select your favourite legend of football. From Larson to Laudrup, Pele to Maradona, Messi or Ronaldo. Order your perfect stocking filler now by clicking on the link to own your very own limited edition legend.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit